Greetings. My name is Thomas Strickland, and this is a reflection on my interview with Turner that took place on December 6, 2024. The purpose of this interview was to discover Turner's leadership style and skills and to compare them to those presented by Kuzes and Posner. Three of the primary lessons I learned from this interview are: number one, that people in general do not have a clear understanding of what leadership is. Number two, it involves delegating tasks. And a third, final lesson revolves around the topic of handling conflict. When initiating this interview with Turner, it became apparent that we were not on the same page regarding what leadership is. I believe that there is a common misconception about the definition of leadership, hence why Kuzes and Posner devote a whole chapter to it. In chapter 1 of Everyday People, Extraordinary Leadership, the authors set forth to transform the perception of leadership from that of a position into that of influence that someone has on others, primarily through personal relationships. This influence that they have is supposed to positively affect others and help in accomplishing whatever tasks they set out to do. At the beginning of the interview, Turner had a very negative view of leadership. They viewed leaders largely as people who manipulated, forcibly controlled, or used others for their own gain. They imagined that leaders were mostly politicians or bosses. Before we could proceed with the interview, I had to point out how Jesus is the ultimate leader, and his style of leadership was that of love and servanthood. We see in Scripture that Jesus came to serve and not be served. This interview opened my eyes to just how pervasive the misconception of what it means to be a true leader is. Now, when it comes to leadership techniques, I believe one of the primary lessons I gleaned from this interview pertains to delegating tasks. Historically, I've not been good at delegating tasks. I prefer to just get the job done myself if possible. However, that's not very practical. Kuzes and Posner write on this subject and talk about how delegating tasks also fosters personal responsibility and accountability. It gives other people the opportunity to prove themselves and grow in their abilities while enhancing productivity. In the interview, Turner spoke about how they intentionally give simple or small tasks to volunteers, allowing them to prove themselves and grow into more challenging tasks. This is something I intend on doing myself in the future, and I look forward to watching others succeed and grow. Another important facet of delegating tasks is celebrating the little successes that others have. When those I lead succeed in accomplishing what I entrust them with, I intend on rejoicing with them and praising them for getting it done. Turner also talked about praise and the importance of finding what, quote, buttons or triggers people have, these words or rewards that speak to them best. I had not previously given much thought to discovering what praise language, so to speak, is preferred by others. However, giving praise to others that touches them the most will help build that relationship as they see one actually take the time to notice what kind of thanks or praise means the most to them. And in situations where those I lead fail in accomplishing the tasks I've given them, can actually become an opportunity to improve the relationship through mentorship. Relationships can be strengthened by showing sincere compassion through taking the time to help others. The final lesson I want to talk about involves the issue of conflict. It becomes very clear during the interview that Turner does not like conflict and will actively avoid it. Now, this is not always a bad thing, as it does cause Turner to be careful not to react in anger. Turner at times will step away and, through prayer, return to the situation with a calm response. However, there are situations where Turner will simply run away and not address the situation at all. For instance, certain members of our church have criticized her to her face. Instead of discussing the issue, trying to come to an understanding or solution, Turner will simply run away. I too hate conflict, and I've worked to avoid it. However, I have since learned from this course that conflict can actually help relationships. One of the main things that has stuck with me from this course comes from the YouTube video titled Five Dysfunctions of a Team, where Lencioni said, conflict is nothing but the pursuit of truth or the best possible answer. This turned on a light bulb for me and helped me to see how conflict does not have to be a knockout, drag-out fight, but a healthy dialogue between two or more parties are striving to get at the truth or the best possible answer. Now, if the conversation devolves into something ugly or destructive, then yes, it is probably best to step away from it. However, with the caveat of intending to return to the conversation at a later date to resolve the issue. It is nearly impossible for different people to always be in agreement about things, so tackling disagreements head on to work out a solution is critical. In closing, if leadership was merely holding a position of authority, then I would not have much leadership experience on my resume. However, redefining leadership as that of having a positive influence on others through a close relationship with them qualifies me and practically everyone as a leader. It's important as leaders to have a clear understanding of what leadership is, how to delegate tasks, and how to handle conflict. And lastly, the key to leadership is relationship. Jesus is the ultimate leader, and he led by example through having close, intimate relationships with his disciples. In the same way, we should focus on building real relationships with those who follow us and guide them with real love and service, caring for them as Paul wrote in Philippians 2:4. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others.